All right. Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Tim Kelly, head basketball coach, Incline Village High School. Coach, thanks for jumping on. Looking forward to chatting.
I've been looking forward to this for a while, Justin.
Well, let's go. Why don't you take us through your background and all the stops along the way from when you grew up at the lake, left, and now you have returned as the prodigal son.
Oh, Lord Almighty, that's a lot. Yep. I was raised in Incline Village, played my youth ball in Incline, high school ball in Incline. Then I transferred to Reno High to play for for Pete Paget. A lot of people know David Paget from Louisville and Kansas. And his dad was my high school coach. And I transferred there because I wanted bigger and I wanted better. And that's kind of been the theme of my life until I got smart enough to know that going home and not worrying about how big a school is was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Um, but after Reno, I went and played for my brother. My brother, Sean Kelly, who was a college coach for a long time. He was my coach at Pacific Lutheran University, a Division III school in Tacoma, Washington. Went up there and had a great time in the Pacific Northwest. I'm still actually the all-time assist leader in that school's history. My job was to get the ball to really good players, and I did that for 4 years. Um, After PLU, I did a quick stint in Australia. I got to go and play up in the New South Wales area in a little place called Port Macquarie, and I got to move up to Brisbane for a little bit, and I was kind of on the Bullets farm team. I say I enjoyed Australia way too much, and I had to leave. But I got right into it. I came back to Tahoe, and I got my first coaching job. I was 22 years old at North Tahoe High School. And that's actually our biggest rival now. Incline's biggest rival is North Tahoe. But I coached for 2 years at North Tahoe. But right away, I knew, on the 3x5 note card in my bathroom, I taped it up and said, I want to be a Division I head coach before I'm 30. And every day I looked at that. Every morning I looked at that. And I got a job at Feather River Junior College in Quincy, California, right away. So I coached for 2 years in North Tahoe. Then the note card stayed with me and moved with me to Quincy. And I was at Feather River for a year, for one season. And I made it for like 8 months. And then as soon as the last game ended, I was gone. And I got a job at Cal State Fullerton with the legendary coach Bob Burton, who just got the court at West Valley Junior College named after him. But Bob Burton brought me down to Fullerton, and then everything erupted. Then it was awesome. Then it was game on. And I went from Fullerton, and then Vance Wahlberg met me. And that's pretty much how my basketball life changed. If you watch us play, if you've ever scouted Bob Burton, you're going to see every box set known to man. We're going to hit you with corner down. We're going to hit you with box. I mean, we're going to hit you with all that for our quick hitters. And then what we do is it's all Vance Wahlberg. It's all dribble drive. It's all ASA. We attack and we skip, and that's what we do from 5 years old all the way up through our varsity boys. Is we just attack you all day. We 2-2-1 you all day. We run and jump you. I switched up a little bit with man principles, but Vance Wahlberg's what got me most at Pepperdine, and I was really excited. I got to live on campus. I was Coach Wahlberg's director of operations, so I have notebooks, legitimately like those notepads. I think they're up to my belly button that I just wrote on notepads every day, and everything Vance said I wrote down, and that really changed my basketball life. I was there for a year with him because, he had that quick stint. Because what happened was a huge high school in Southern California called Servite. I think they're most famous in basketball for just being modern day's rival. I mean, it's modern day St. John Bosco, Orange Lutheran, J. Sarah, and Santa Margarita. And then you have Servite. And it's like you got 5 Trinity League teams, and then you got Servite. But I was at Servite. They recruited me because the two things I'm good at in this world are coaching basketball and talking about Jesus. That's pretty much how he made me. So I've been a Catholic youth minister for a long time, and Servite recruited me to do both. And I coached there for 4 years. And my first week at Santa Margarita, I had to prep for Klay Thompson on a Tuesday night, and then Travis and David Ware on a Friday night. And I watched film and I looked at my staff and I went, where the hell am I right now? Because this is a bit much. But I was at Servite for 4 years. And the greatest thing that happened to me at Servite was I met my wife. Uh, and then we had our first child that September, who was my son, John Paul, who's now an eighth grader. And then we had our second child, Annabelle, about 18 months later. And she saw me unhappy and she said, "What do you want?" And I said, "If we can pull off moving home, if we can pull off moving to Incline Village, will you give me one phone call?" And she gave me one phone call. I called the priest at the Catholic Church. And the next day that I called him, they were opening up the youth minister job to the nation. And he said, "It's your job if you want it." And I became the youth minister at the Catholic Church in Incline. The day I showed up at Incline Village, the head boys basketball coach at Incline High took a different job. And so the boys basketball job opened up and they called me that day. And they said, "Do you want to be the basketball coach here?" And I said, "Yes." And 13 years later, I'm still at Incline High School, having a good time running everything.
Such a good story. And the irony of it is you're talking about that year when you're getting to play the Ware boys and Clay. And I'm still ticked off that we burped up a game in the NorCal semifinals that would have taken us to play against him. And instead, the team that we beat by 15 ended up playing them and getting beat by 30. So that's all right. Neither here nor there. I haven't thought a lot about that over the years. So let's do some digging here, Coach. Pacific Lutheran. My son went up there 2 summers ago to do a point guard college session there. So he's been on campus. I have not, but that's not what I wanted to get at. Australia. So I spent a couple weeks there this summer, bouncing around, and I've been wrestling with how to look at the way international areas, let's call it, because it's not just Australia, obviously, and the way in which they approach both school and club athletics to where they're basically training twice a week and then they have a set game on the weekend on Saturday. And yet we haven't figured out how to adopt that model yet. So talk a little bit about what you learned in Australia, both culturally, basketball wise, what you've been able to hold on to and bring back, or any other things you've been questioning and challenging over the years in regards to our approach.
No, you hit it on the head. And it's actually, it's so funny you're saying this because the biggest thing I learned was play less and train more, or what I call teach more. Everyone asks, my son has a chance to be pretty good. And we've actually used what I call the Australian model on him, where he hasn't played a basketball game since August. Like August, his last game, he went to one of those, the fun camps, I call them, that you go and you get ranked when you're in eighth grade. And I'm like, this ranking so full of crap, it doesn't matter. But we actually train. We do a different sort of training every day. It's not like I destroy him, but he only plays like a game a week. I love that model. I think that was the biggest thing I loved about watching. Part of my contract overseas was I had to run camps, and I've always just loved teaching kids. And dribbling was definitely my biggest forte, but dribbling and then really a feel for the game. I mean, there's some of us, Justin, that we've coached kids like this that for some reason the ball can just leave your hands early and find a kid, and that pass meant nothing to people that have no idea about basketball. But to coaches like us, we're like, that was the best freaking pass. And, you can teach more in the European model. It's why the first 2 picks were from France. I know they're super tall, all that stuff, but also how they teach the game is so much better than what we're doing. I mean, to play 8 games a week, and for coaches to think we can truly teach how to play, it really bothers me. I mean, we don't do that here. I mean, we teach a lot more than we play, but we still get a lot of really quality, good game reps in. I would say that was the biggest thing I learned when I was over there was that, and then the toughness. I mean, I don't know about other countries because I've done camps now in the Philippines and camps now in Switzerland, but that Australian toughness, I'm not shocked how many Aussies are now playing in our NBA, because there's this nastiness that we call it a dog, they just call it being Australian. Like they just call it regular. Like I remember I would get handled by dudes over there, and it was just normal for them. And kids grow up normal. I think the biggest thing we're missing out on though is the club idea that you build into like a pro team there, that you could be 16 years old and Luca played his first professional game when he was 16 because he was like raised in that club. I I would like to see, these prep schools almost kind of morph into like you go from prep to G League, where every prep school has kind of a G League team or the level below the G League, where you could kind of feed kids that way. That whether you have to get a real job like they do in Australia and still play, but there's got to be a way to make like how this new prep league thing is, this national prep thing. There's got to be a way for that to feed in so that our style of basketball in America grows that way.
Well, I don't know that we're ever going to get there because the regional bodies that control the sport are so much more organized and efficient. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, so there are, territories, so New South Wales, Western Australia, Queensland, whatever, and each of those has a basketball, like almost like the USA basketball. They have it regionally, and then that then organizes all the youth stuff. And that'd be like every state would have to have a basketball association that then controlled all the youth programs, and you'd be taking money out of all these club coaches' pocket, and they're never going to subscribe to that. So the capitalistic thing in regards to how the United States tries to monetize everything is why that probably will never happen. But yeah, the model there is interesting. The other thing, since we're talking about that very briefly, the other thing that it allows for, especially for youth and adolescence and development, is the other 2 days they're playing something else. So the idea of this sports specialization that has consumed the youth sports industrial complex in the States lately is actually not what's being promoted, especially up through, say, your 16-year-old self. They're actually the other 2 days playing rugby or whatever it happens to be. Talk a little bit about your take on that.
Well, that's what I love. I mean, that's why what I did before, it's my first year at Incline High as the campus supervisor. So I'm on campus. But before this, I ran all the youth sports in Incline Village. And I loved it because we built the flag football program and we built it around soccer. So we had soccer and basketball and football and baseball and track and field. And it's one of the reasons I do love where I'm at right now, where it was really hard at Servite because I wanted to let football players play basketball, but it was really hard because you had to be pretty special to compete in the Trinity League because Mater Dei has no football players and J. Sarah has no football players and and so on and so forth. But I would love for us to have a couple days a week where it was okay, 3 days basketball, go to track practice here, go to soccer practice here. That's the biggest bummer in Southern California is that soccer and basketball are the same season because I love coaching soccer players. In Nevada, I get soccer players. And so you get really in shape kids because in Nevada, soccer is a fall sport. But yeah, I will say till I'm blue in the face that I played quarterback and shortstop and soccer, and it did nothing but help my basketball game because the muscles that were built. But I do know it takes a special kid, to do the little bit you need to do year round. I don't mean 7 days a week, but you need to get some shots up, like find a way where I can get a couple shots up, year round to still be successful. Because the hard part is what you're saying is the competition level has increased so much because of everyone just hooping year round. It's just a hard thing to do now, but I would love for it to be what you're talking about. Go play some rugby, go play some soccer.
Well, I think to your point, the skill level and the ability level is theoretically increased because people are playing, but it doesn't mean their actual ability to play and the IQ that goes along with it and the way in which the game is played when you get back into a structured environment that it's actually helpful. I would say like me having, for our boys team this year, there's I think 8 returning athletes and 7 of them play football. And it's like they're gonna roll in and you just build your team a little differently, right? And you're gonna
Right.
try to focus on some other things. And I also feel like, this push that has happened to almost gaslight kids out of being kids, is so disingenuous because 3% of the world plays collegiate athletics. And with the transfer portal, that's going to reduce even more so. So it's like, why not just tell the kids the reality? Like, go be a kid, like play as much as you can. And if you're good enough, they'll find you. And
We
if
do need to
not,
play each other because I
yeah.
have 8 football players that are going to win a state title on November 23rd. I'm not even going to see them
Hmm.
November 25th. It's like, I mean, my player that I was telling you about earlier, he's the quarterback.
Hmm.
Like he's right now the like fighting to be MVP of the state of Nevada, undefeated football team. And our other starter is they've already been offered walk-ons in Nevada to play football. And so they're going to come off that November 23rd game. And I love it. I'm like, I don't want to see you guys because we want to be really good in February. Nevada is so different than California. We really have to win. We got to win. If you win in the month of February, you're great in Nevada. California, you guys got 200,000 teams and it takes forever to get through CIF this and CIF that and then state. But yeah, you're right though. I love our kids being kids and not having weekend games so a kid can go and live it up on a Saturday, not in a bad way, but like just go
Hmm.
enjoy yourself, go on a date, like hang out.
Love that. All right, let's go back and talk about your first head job. And then what you learned there, what you took with you, your next job, how you've implemented some of those things, and then what's stayed with you over the years to this gig. And even now, hell, you're on campus for the first time. What does that look like and what awareness has that brought to the deal?
Right.
Usually I ask, what'd you realize right away you needed to figure out? But your journey's been so robust, there's probably too much to think about, but you can throw a few things out there for the listeners.
Right. No, for sure. My first job, I was the best player on my team, my first job. I mean, I was too busy playing, being mad that I wasn't still in Australia. I was kicking the crap out of the best player every day, thinking I was cool because I was 22 years old, beating up on an 18-year-old. And I'm like, I didn't realize that I was an idiot until that after the season. And the one kid got really good and the rest of the team sucked. Like the one kid, because I was like, I'm guarding you every day. And I'm thinking that was going to help us, not realizing that there were 4 other dudes on the team and then really 7 other players I need to make better. And also there was some strategy I probably should have put in there somewhere. I really thought that everyone could do what I did with a basketball. And then I just made one kid really good. And so we weren't very good. That summer we built something that I changed a lot. And I got with some coaches that were really good coaches, Tom Orlick, who was at South Tall at the time, and then went on to Clovis West. I got with Coach, and then I started asking Coach Pageant just questions like, "What do I do here?" And I will say I grew a lot year 2 into becoming a much better basketball coach and a much better individual trainer because I would watch film more and I would break down what a kid needed to do better. And I don't think I played 1 second my second year as a coach. Um, I think what I realized right then was I wanted to coach a higher level, not because I didn't like North Tahoe, just because I was really like, okay, I want to be in college basketball and I want to be, there. And the junior college, I learned really how to treat people well that were from different places. That was my biggest thing is I think I learned that everybody is different because in Lake Tahoe, a lot of kids are very similar. So I could treat a lot of kids very similarly. My first job, my junior college job, we had dudes from Alabama and Chicago and Philadelphia, and it was like, and then California and Nevada.
Quincy.
Yeah, and then a random kid from Quincy who's like, taking these dudes that are from Chicago and like Illinois, like from Alabama to like a high school party because he went to Quincy High, and I have to race over to a party and save like 5 black dudes because they're at a party with like, I'm like, dude, you guys gotta leave. Like, I get these girls are like 1 year younger than you, but we gotta go. Like, we gotta balance. Like, and so, but year 2, I really learned how to treat people individually and really want you to succeed individually. And that was the biggest thing I learned at Feather River was just like it's about relationships more than anything else. Like it really was about relationships. I learned how to work at Fullerton. I mean, my first scout, my how to work and prepare. My first scout, Coach Burton, gave me Hope International, which is that NAIA school right next to
Which is
Fullerton.
across the street.
Yeah, and it's going to be a blowout. Like it's Fullerton versus Open, and I'm thinking, he gives me, "Hey TK, you got the Hope Scout." I'm like, "Yes." So I'm in the office and I'm putting the video together, and I walk in, and as you can tell, I talk pretty fast. I've actually slowed down a lot in my time. My first scout, I was probably talking 200 miles per hour. And if you know Bob Burton at all, he is not afraid of saying whatever's on his mind in the most amazing language ever. I don't think I've heard the F word that many times that fast of how to slow down so that our players could understand what I'm saying. And we knew we were going to win the game by probably 200 points. And he still treated it like, but this is the most important thing in the world. And you need to slow down so these young men can understand you. And you need to do things well, and you need to do things professionally. And then we went on the court, and I had to do the scout on the court, and I went too fast again. And I don't know if he threw a ball at me, but a ball whizzed by me somewhere, and it was like the reminder to slow down a little bit. And so it was that. But Coach Burton taught me really the most of anybody. I mean, Coach Burton was the most prepared person. I mean, I would take the bus driver the night before from our hotel to the arena where we were playing to make sure I knew exactly how many minutes it was going to take, exactly the door we needed to go in, exactly where our locker room was, so that when we got on that bus, he came in last, he sat down, he knew how much time we got, TK, because everybody no one calls me Tim, everyone calls me TK. He goes, how much time we got, TK? And I was like, we got exactly 7.5 minutes. And when we got off that bus, I would walk him straight to where he was going. I would walk the players straight to where they're going. There was no mistake of the door I went in, where the balls were at. And really, that was huge for me, because I saw the professionalism he took every single day. And I loved that. And I loved him holding me to a standard that I really wanted to be held to. And so I would say that's what I learned the most at Fullerton. Pepperdine changed my entire life. I mean, Vance Wahlberg, him creating that offense and just making up what dribble drive was, and him telling me why he did it, because of the pieces he had, that the majority of us in this country have those pieces. I mean, the majority of us don't have dudes we can run, the Kansas break and look like Gonzaga and have a trailing 6'10" big who you're going to set a back screen for that can post. And he created something that really made his son look like a phenomenal player. And Jason was really good, but Jason wasn't like this juggernaut of a player. And Jason played in that style so well that, what he created for Chris Hernandez and those guys was beautiful. And the way he taught it and the way he believed in it, Vance just believes in himself more than anybody I've met in my entire life. And some people say it's an arrogance. It's a radical confidence in knowing that he's worked his ass off to be great. And I love that about him. So Pepperdine, I became a dribble drive junkie. I mean, I was like, I'm in for the dribble drive. I'm going to change up how the press is. I'm going to go to, but I was all in for what I learned at Pep. Servite humbled me. Servite.
Let's press pause for a minute, because I want to talk a little bit about the contrast in styles and how you go from being taught by Coach Burton, obviously, where at that time, I think he evolved over the years, but at that time, you're micromanaging every possession, to where the way Vance described it at one point at Davis when he was on the circuit giving his clinics is you're going from a director to a producer, right? And you're ultimately like putting the decision making in the hands of the athletes at that point, right? So what would you say, and then you can keep this short and go back to Servite, but that you've kept from Burton, I mean, not just the quick hitters, but like strategically, right? Versus Coach Wahlberg stuff where it's just kind of a free for all. I mean, there's rules. Like I've run it for years myself, but it's like if you just go and watch, you don't think that, right? It's like pick up hoops, but really it's not. They're executing a series of patterns that have been drilled into their head that just happen organically at that time. So I would just love your take on the contrast in a quick, 2 minute deal before you
That's a
get back to the
phenomenal
survey.
question because you know what? That's a beautiful way to say it. We give the utmost freedom here. It's we give the utmost freedom. I mean, if you'll work for us and you'll really put the time in, we will let you do what you want. Like we will let you go. Like and I think that's something that I really enjoyed from Coach Wahlberg. Um, I know when to grab the reins and pull a Burton. Like I know when to. I could because there are times all of us want a certain kid to shoot it. And that's the thing that people don't understand about Coach Burton. When Ralphie Holmes hits the shot at Oregon State to win, and it was the first time Oregon State got beat the entire season at home, he said, Ralphie's getting this ball. Like we had Bobby Brown, we had Scott, we or not Scott Cutley, not yet, but we had really good players. And I mean, and he's like, Ralphie's getting the ball right here. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned was I know when to grab and run a Burton set because I want that person to shoot it. Where the dribble drive, you're showing everybody you're going to get a touch right here, and it may not always be a kid you want to shoot it, but you can't let that out. So I appreciate that. Where, yeah, there's that control. It's funny. Coach Burton told me one time when I took the job Pepperdine, we're playing Fullerton. And he goes, if I did it again, I would run this offense. And I went, you would never be able to do this, coach. And I love why, because he does truly know more than anybody else. I mean, he does. He's such a mastermind with it. It's why Yosh is winning so much. I mean, there's a reason Yosh is winning, and there's a reason Newman's probably going to win the Big West this year at Northridge. And there's a reason Waterman's so good at Academy of the Art. And there's a reason why all these dudes who come from Coach Burton are winning. I mean, it's like because he teaches you how to control enough where it's like, no, you have to show you are the smartest person out there. But yeah, I love that question. And I learned that a lot where I'm going to run a Burton quick hitter when I want a certain dude to get it. And then otherwise, I'm going to tell everybody they're the greatest player in the world. All 5 dudes on the floor, you all can make shots. You all are the greatest. So I love that question.
All right, so back to Servite.
I got humbled. I learned how to live my life in a big humility at Servite. We got our asses kicked. We were really good. We had some really good teams. And when I say we went 3-7 my last year at Servite, we had the first win ever at Santa Margarita, and we swept Jay Serra. And if Cesar Guerrero doesn't hit 2 buzzer beaters, we beat Bosco twice to go 5-5. And that means your losses would have been Mater Dei twice, Orange Lutheran with Gabe York twice, and Margarita once, who had a phenomenal team. I could not believe we won at Margarita. I mean, neither could Jerry DeBusk. Jerry was like, what's going on? He was super mad at me after the game. And then he called later to apologize and be like, hey, you did a great job, young man. Cause I was the young buck. So, but the losses we took, you had to learn how to shake Coach McKnight's hand and go, dude, you beat my ass by 70 and I'm still going to walk over here and I'm still going to shake your hand. Cause that's what men do. You learned how to really win well and lose well at Servite. And I would say that was the biggest thing that I grew from as a coach was that every day wouldn't be my day. And so that was it. I also learned I really didn't want to recruit high school basketball players. Like I didn't want to go to 8th grade games and recruit. Like my last real recruit was Stanley Johnson. And
which ironically enough is completely and utterly illegal in the state of California, but Southern California plays by different rules.
I mean, Justin, I went to a travel tournament. I mean, whatever we call it now, AAU. I mean, I went to a travel tournament, but right before I quit, and it was probably one of the reasons I resigned at Servite. Everyone says I got forced out. No, I didn't. They tried to sign me to like a new 10-year contract. I mean, the AD is still the wrestling coach at Servite, and he'll tell you that he was like, "Don't leave. Nobody wants you to go anywhere." And it was the Memorial Weekend, huge tournament in Southern California, and I look at my new wife, and I want to say we just had our second child. And she's like, where are you going? I got to go watch basketball. She's like, why? I'm like, I have to go watch eighth graders play. She's like, what? I'm like, I have to go watch an eighth grade travel tournament. And she's like, you're being for real right now. And I'm like, I am, Dave. Like, I show up to Ocean View High School in Huntington Beach, California. Every single Trinity League school is represented. And there's about, call it 11 other Southern California schools that are public. And I look at my boy, Rusty Van Cleve, who's a phenomenal coach, who was at, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Rusty, if you're listening to this. He was at a public school in Orange. They're all there, Justin. I mean, there's 11 public schools, and we are legitimately watching eighth graders play. And I remember Stanley goes up and does this nasty, Stanley Johnson goes up and just bangs out in traffic. And we're all looking at each other. And the biggest question was, he lives in Fullerton. Coach Check just took the Hope job, and Coach Check was extremely close to the Johnsons. So Stanley would have gone to Fullerton High School, I think, if Bill would have stayed at Fullerton. But Bill took the Hope job. So now everyone's like, all right, does Servite have a hope and a prayer at Stanley, or is Pat Barrett already in the mix and it's over and he's going to Mater Dei? And it was like, I think I was the smartest one to be like, I watched him dunk that ball and I go, I don't have a hope and a prayer at all. Like, what are you guys talking about? It was like, but we're all sitting there watching these kids play, and you're talking to travel ball coaches, and you're talking to moms and dads, and you're talking to, legitimately, you're talking to agents. And I'm not saying that, like, and legitimately, the one guy you never saw there, Coach McKnight, was never there. I will say that I get it, people, but neither was Coach, neither was Coach DeBusk. Nope. There were just people representing those schools. I was probably the only head coach. Everyone's like, oh, wait, the Servite head coach is here. I'm like, yeah, because I don't have anybody representing me. Like, I don't have anybody like this. Like, this is me trying to win. And my assistant coach at the time, his son decided not to come to Servite. And that's when I looked at my wife and I said, I can't even get one of my closest friends' sons to come here. Like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Yeah. And that's when I was really like, you know what? I think I need to make a move. Even though we were going to return a really good basketball team. We returned to pretty much everybody off that 3-7 team. And I told Coach DeBusk that I was resigning after the all league meeting. And he was like, why? He's like, you just crossed. He's like, we were talking about it. You just stepped over the mountaintop. Like, we were all talking about how good you're going to be next year, because we were going to return 5 Division I athletes: linebacker at BYU, wide receiver Air Force, quarterback Villanova, starting middle blocker UCLA, starting outside hitter Stanford. I said, yeah.
But none of those dudes are hooping.
But none of them are hooping. I go, I have 5 Division I athletes and none of them play basketball.
But that's where you said, right? That's where it's like putting context to what you're doing and where you're at and why. So you want to go back to Incline, talk about returning home to the alma mater, what that's been like, what you learned, bumps and bruises along the way briefly, and then we'll get into some more pointed questions.
Yeah. So real quick, just it's been, a mentor, like the football coach at PLU a long time ago, Frosty Westering, said, make the big time where you are. His book is called that. It's called Make the Big Time Where You Are. And the second one is The Secret Successes of the Big Time. And I really dove back into that coming home. I don't care. Our school has 315 kids, and we'll play everybody. We play Huntington Beach this year. I truly believe we have the best player in the entire region, who, if he's anywhere else, I think his list of teams is enormous of where he could go play. I think, he already had his visit to Chico State. And you and I both know, if you can play at Chico State, you're really, really good. Air Force is really thinking about after the portal. Everybody says after the portal. Well,
we'll get into that later, but yeah, keep going.
The biggest thing I learned was coming home, make the big time where you are. No matter how big the school is, I came home and I walk in every day and I have so much Incline pride. It's unbelievable. And we learned how to build something here. I've taught we've really seen that we can build something beautiful here, and we have. We've built something where kids truly believe that we should play the last game of the season every single year. I mean, we lost in it last year. 2 years ago, we got beaten in the Final Four. 3 years ago, we lost in the title game. 4 years ago was COVID, but we would have been right there. 5 years ago, we lost in the title game, and 6 years ago, we won it. And we truly believe we can win it again this year. And we have a great feeder program. Like I said, my son and his group believe that they can come in here and continue it. So tradition was what I wanted to build. My brother is the greatest player, one of the greatest players ever here. My other brother was a football star. Sister was a cheerleader. So I have a lot of pride in this place. And we bring that pride every day to everything we do. And that's pretty much what Incline basketball is about, is just, believing that Incline basketball is bigger than any one of us. And I have to tell that to everybody every day, because everyone's like, oh, TK, you did this, TK. And I'm like, no, my staff has been phenomenal. Like, our best player right now, his dad's been my assistant coach for 11 years, 12 years. I mean, so I've had the same staff at a tiny school like this for over a decade. And that's saying a lot.
John Klein.
So,
yeah, no, I mean, that's consistency matters, obviously, right? In anything that we do. But let's go to that point, right? 13 years, and you've established this tradition. It's your alma mater. You've evolved as a head coach. What's the best thing you do in your program that has the largest ripple effect on that culture? Meaning, if you could offer it to someone else that they could try to implement, maybe something you brought with you from your previous stops, but looking at if you were to go somewhere else and pull up roots, what would you bring with you that would be like a non-negotiable? And I'm not looking for the amoebic, like ethereal, nonsensical word salad, but like what's real that you guys do that you can offer other people.
Yeah, it's a virtue a day program. We do a virtue a day, and we build it when you're young, called Play Like a Champion. And every camp we do, it's the same virtue. Every single day you have that idea that it goes into, the number one thing we do is your attitude is everything. And that's the first thing we build upon, is your attitude is everything, and having an attitude of gratitude. I know a lot of us do that, but we truly talk to 5-year-olds about this, and we build everything that day. And that's Monday. Monday is start your entire week with what your attitude's like. The second thing is being humble. Number two, we know we're really good. We know we are very good. We know we are very good at what we do. But Tuesday is always humility. It's winning and losing, with that humble heart, and knowing I'm going to win well and lose well. The third day is being courageous. It's every single day. The most courageous people are the ones that do the right thing when no one's looking. They do the right thing, and they know what right and what wrong is. I mean, deep down, we all know what's right and what's wrong. And so Wednesday's always the courageous day, because it's that hump day. It's that, can you fight through this idea there's a hump day? There's no such thing as a hump day. Just fight through that and be courageous to do the right thing all the time. The fourth thing is perseverance. Never giving up, just never quitting, battling through that fourth day. And then day 5 is always faith. And, it takes faith for you to give your keys to your kid to drive a car. It takes faith to leave the house. Parents have faith in us. We have faith in our players. If you do have that idea at Servite, we could call it a faith in God. At Incline High, we don't talk about that, but it's that belief in that faith. That's the biggest thing I would take everywhere. I mean, I can't lie to you. I did some interviews this year just purely because we thought we might be moving because of my son and taking care of some family members. And that was the biggest thing I talked about in the interview was what I would take that way. I mean, I would take that, and that's really the biggest thing. I would just uproot and go, this leaves.
Perfect. Can you dig into the details a little bit? So what's the practical deliverables in that? Or is it just like thematically when you get to practice, hey, we're focusing on attitude today, everything we do is going to be wrapped up in that. Let's find some highlights and celebrations around that. Or is there curriculum? Is there things that you do that highlight and support this virtue a day, Play Like a Champion program?
No, we don't really have, or sorry, not saying no. It really is that focus on that for the day. It really is that. And then and then that's going to go into, I can't lie, we've failed a little bit on the goal setting aspect. There was a daily goal setting aspect of how we did that, and that's something that, our senior class being the phenomenal class they have, and like the kid I was talking about, he actually gives the talk at camps now. He actually gives, a certain talk to the little kids. He comes to camp and it's like the highlight of the day because I'm no longer cool because now I'm the 47-year-old bald guy. So we have the kid come in and give the talks, but it's really just that focus for that day. But we will bring back, now that I'm on campus, it's going to be a lot better for me because now we're going to have a lot more lunchtime stuff where we can set the goals better and they can turn them into me when they show up on Monday, where it's a goal a day with that certain virtue. And then not just a goal, but a commitment. We're huge on what can you commit to doing today that is something about attitude. Maybe it's as easy as thanking a teacher for coming and babysitting you for 90 minutes, otherwise known as teaching. It's the idea of that. So we're going to really do a much better job this year now that I'm on campus of having the written piece and the meetings more about the Play Like a Champion program.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go back to 315 kids at the school. I'm not sure how many sports you sponsor collectively, but as you mentioned, you've got a bunch of your kids playing football. I'm sure they're playing other things in the spring, so you don't get the keep up with the Joneses year-round nonsense that is out there. But what would you say you've learned watching other teams, programs, disciplines that you've stolen that have nothing to do with basketball? So you mentioned the wrestling coach was the AD at Servite, right? You mentioned the football coach is the AD here, I think, at Irvine. What have you been able to steal from your colleagues and implement as from a coaching standpoint, or hell, even a drill and activity standpoint, even though you're not watching basketball coaches?
One of the coolest things I've seen is oh gosh, now it's blanking me. And he called it the monthly adventure. And it was like a monthly adventure where it had nothing to do with your sport. And gosh, who did this? It was like he would do one thing a month with as many players would show up, but it was something fun like go-kart racing. So his entire program would show up. He would go like an outdoor adventure course, like that whole whatever they call it, the ropes course. But he would do an adventure a month around his season because he didn't get kids like I don't get like springtime. All my guys play baseball or they run track, and so I'm not about to do that. But he would talk to the coaches. For example, like it would have been last weekend for us if I could have done it and I didn't bring my son to a Laker game on Saturday night. I probably would have asked. It was a 3-day weekend for us up here.
Mm-hmm.
The football team played on Thursday night. It had been like Saturday night. We would have gone down and hit golf balls at this place like the Grand Sierra Resort. Just do something that has nothing to do with your sport, but it's about the relationships you build, every month. And he would just go do those things. And that's really what I would like to do, partly because it is my son coming up. Next year it's my son and his friends, and like we want to steal minutes with our teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved that idea that in the summertime he definitely would take him to camp, but he would go somewhere and that would be their adventure. Like he'd do one of the 3-day camps at USD or whatever, and that I liked a lot. That adventure a month with your kids.
Yes, that sounds awesome. And when I initially wrote it down, I was thinking in season, but it sounds like it's throughout the year to keep them engaged because you're not seeing them because they're at these other sports, which I love, especially in small schools like ours. All right, I got two more because I got a backstop on the end of this thing. But how would you say your approach has changed over the years to coaching?
People will laugh at me saying this, but I am much more calm now than I ever was. I guess I'd call it being more grown up. And what it is? For me, actually, I think it's just walking into it knowing how blessed I am that not everyone gets to do this. Like even in our tiny little town here where, maybe being the coach at Incline High isn't the biggest deal, or people in town think it's a big deal. Like they look at me and they're like, Coach TK, how are you? Like little kids like stop. And they're like, Dad, it's TK. And when I hear that, I have to I make sure I turn around and I'm like get down like on a knee and I'm like, hey bud, how are you? Like, cause I don't know because I don't think of myself like that, Justin. Like I just don't like probably because I know the Vance Wahlbergs of the world and the Gary McKnights of the world where I but I've really understand now that I have a gigantic role I've played. I go back to Servite and everyone's like, TK, how are you, sir? I'm like, oh my gosh, I did actually they call me Coach Kelly there. Um, but I think I truly know the role I play like on this planet now. And for me, my planet is Incline Village, the North Shore Lake Tahoe. But I know I truly know how blessed I am to be the head coach here. And I truly know how I want to treat people and how I want to treat my young men because I want them to know how special they are to me. And I think I don't call kids by their last names anymore. Like I want, like, there's a time all of us used to, it's like Williams, Kelly, like, it's like, no, just
I'm still referred to by my last name.
Yeah. And so I think I really walk into things now knowing that I have a big role to play and that kids are looking at me for a great part of their life. Like they're like, I really want to enjoy this. And so it's much more about the relationship than really about trying to win a state title. And I think it's why we've been so successful for the last 6 years is the group that won the state title met me as a youth group leader. They were all in my youth group as sixth graders. So they all met me as the guy talking about Jesus. It just happened 6 years later, we won a state championship. But I think that's the biggest thing I do is I know the role I play.
That's great. I love that. And I'd love to dig deeper into that because we're pressed for time. I got one more, and this is the growth mindset question. So what have you most recently changed your mind on? It doesn't have to be sports related, but you used to believe this and now you're over here and it was an intentional shift and here's why. Curious about where that is for you and something that you've been thinking about lately that you've definitely dug in and made a shift.
Oh man. I would the biggest thing that's changed in my life is, and it's going to seem funny because I know it's easy for a lot of people, is that whole idea that I got two ears and one mouth for a reason. I listen a lot more, and I think my players will say this. Like I think like he's over the screen right now, kind of like, yeah, he's better at that. Like I I think I listen a lot more than I ever did. And I think I've really tried to use my two ears way more than my one mouth. And so that was the biggest thing that I do.
What have you learned as a result of being more intentional around that?
There are a whole lot more smarter people in this world than I thought there were. You know, there's a lot of people that really know what they're doing. I mean, it's funny. He's in this room right now too, but I have a former teacher that shares a room with me now. Like a teacher from Reno High is our dean of students here, and he's a former track coach, football coach, and we share an office now. And he knows a hell of a lot about being a teacher and a coach and a leader of young people. And there's a lot of people in this world that if you stop and truly listen to them, you can learn a lot. And that was the biggest thing I learned is, I mean, I knew there were a lot of people that were smart. I just don't think I listened to them as much as I should have for a long time.
Well, and the irony of that, just because we come from a similar tree, is that, right, you're around Burton and I'm around Bob and it's Williams, and it's just like you got these geniuses around you that have a ton to offer. And now, as we're approaching 50, it's like, wait, can I go back and redo all that and try to hold on to some of these things that were right there in front of me? So, and then the other, what's the cliche, right? If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. So like you got to figure out how to get into those rooms where there are people that are smarter and more talented and allow you to stretch yourself and grow rather than, kind of thinking that you have all the answers.
Oh, I love it. My entire staff loves that they're allowed to say no to me. because no one else in Incline Village, people in Incline Village are like, oh, he's so great. And I'm like, I appreciate you. I just love your kids, but I am really not. I make a lot of mistakes. I mean,
Well,
we
that's
run.
the other thing we'll end with here is like, how are you inviting dissenting voice into your deliberations, right? How are you actively trying to have people challenge and question your approach and what you're doing so that you can get better or be told you're wrong or be validated that you're right?
My head assistant coach runs the entire communication program for a Fortune 500 company. My other assistant coach got his master's degree in honors at USC, and he makes way more money than anybody around me does. And he's a genius when it comes to financial stuff. Other assistant's a former referee who is battling cancer and toughest guy I know. And he'll look at me like, no, you're wrong. That was a great call. And that's my staff. I mean, and all of them are at least 10 years older than me. And I'm like, no, I don't need anybody telling me that's a great job, TK. It's like, no, I need people saying like, would you do this? And it's like, that's
Yeah.
great right there.
No doubt, man. Well, this has been great. It's fun catching up. I appreciate you taking the time.
It's good to see you, Justin.